This is why I believe genuinely in the necessity of the commitment to a set of cultural norms that are timeless. Like we have to sociologically identify something about Islam that is cultural and eternal, right? There's a set of norms that run through all cultures, and to a certain extent it's there, but it's not spelt out well enough. But there are certain matters of akhlaq, matters of culture, matters of social refinement and social etiquette that have to become cultural for us, that no matter where, and they're part and parcel of the basic teachings of faith for us, that no matter where Muslims go, they practice these things. It doesn't matter whether a Muslim is a River Englishman or a Malay Muslim, or a Muslim in or an Aboriginal Muslim in Australia, or somebody in sub-Saharan Africa. It doesn't matter where they're from. These things are constants culturally. It doesn't matter how different they dress. It's really important. What's really interesting is that the shaitan is actually diverting us from all of this by making us obsess about things that aren't necessarily such norms. Does that make sense? So we're obsessing about trousers above the ankles, below the ankles, the length of the beard, the style of dress, how long the qameez has to be, whether the head should be covered, whether the head shouldn't be covered. For men, I'm talking about perhaps the style of hijab, whether the niqab, whether not the niqab. We're obsessing about these zahiri issues when there are metaphysical traits that are far more important, right? That are fundamental to the continuity of the authenticity of Islam. But nobody even cares about those things. Nobody's bothered. Okay? And it's really interesting how this works. All right? So so I did that Facebook post about smartphones and children, right? And young people. And what was fascinating was that most of the responses were positive, but some people wanted to say, oh, how dare you say it's haram? How can you say it's haram? Let's ignore that. But what I found really interesting was a few days later, I thought, you know what? Let's have a look at all these fatwa websites and see if any of the ulama are dealing with this issue. And amazingly, like nobody's dealing with it. Like one of the most dangerous things to young people, and nobody's said a word about, ulama particularly, have not said a word about how it needs to be avoided. Instead, guess what they're obsessing over? Guess what that very question produces in terms of results? Whether a woman has to appear in her niqab or not if she takes a picture with her phone, whether it's permissible to look at a woman if her picture has been taken, whether these kind of things. Meaning you have a universal consensus across the globe between doctors and psychologists and everyone about how harmful something is to the morality and the human upbringing of a child, as well as the child's physical well-being. Okay? And we're distracted from it with matters of fiqh. Not that they're not important, but this is precisely what happens when you lose touch with what your core values are.